some of the amazing things about those peoples, the Anu, and then I want to tell you one of my experiences.
Well, I love that their creation story is they came from the 7 sisters. And not only is that their creation story, they have a 3,000-mile songline that goes across the desert telling the story of their creation from the 7 sisters. And when Lee and I were fortunate enough to be in Uluru, one of the places I wanted to go was a place called Cave Hill, because I had seen the artwork that is on the ceiling of the roof of the cave. And what intrigued me the most was that this cave is said by the Ananu culture to be the original landing place of the Pleiadians. I mean, didn't you get chills when I told you that there's a cave that has the original landing of the Pleiadians as part of their culture?
And you told me at that time that we had to have permission from it. We had to have an elder take us. Sometimes the elders don't even show up.
It's their land, and you have to go with their permission.
And we got to go.
And that was profound. And here's the thing, though. This is a culture that's the oldest living culture on the planet that claims they have been living there, living in the moment for 50,000 years. And they tell you all the details of their tradition. But they are a society that we describe as non-literate. We've only had literacy for the last couple of thousands of years. We didn't necessarily have literacy 50,000 years ago. And yet all of their history is passed down through what's called oral tradition. I didn't really think much about that until I came across this amazing book by another Australian author by the name of Lynn Kelly. She wrote a book called The Memory Code. And she's basically saying that society and culture that had orality, which is oral tradition, non-literate, the structure of their brain was completely different, because the information they would receive is creating memory palaces within their brain, recorded through song, dance, memory aids, memory landscapes. And basically she was saying, once we were Google, we would have encyclopedic knowledge within the structure of our brain that you recall through dance, song, chants, memory aids. And one of the things that impressed me in her book, because she researched this all around the planet, many, many cultures. She got sparked by the Aboriginal Indigenous culture in Australia, but she found the same common principle around the world. And one of the things she relates in her book is about the North American Navajos, and how researchers were able to sit down with them, and the Navajo were able to give them 700 insect species. I mean, Lee, can you imagine 700 insect species? I don't know any entomologist that can rattle off the top of their head 700 insect species, their habitats, where they live, and all of that is done and presented through dance and myth and sand paintings and stories like that. And sorry. I just say I relate to that. I didn't understand it at first. I relate to it when you think about how many of you remember, especially Americans I'm talking to, how many remember the ABC song that you learned as a child for your letters? And the answer is you'll remember it probably to your last breath, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of these. And what are your favorite songs? And do you remember the lyrics of them? And the answer is, yeah, you really do, because they're important to you. This is the crux of it, that the brain and the mapping of the brain goes there and remembers it a whole lot more than anything that you'd read in a book. And I'm just having a little intuition come in that these Healing Wednesdays, we're offering them every Wednesday for at least a year. That's the promise from Kryon and you.
Yes.
And it's going to be a similar process every time. And I just feel that there is something in that structure that will go into our cells in a very deep and ancient way of what the Indigenous have been using for years.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to do more, but I want to do it. I'm going to do it later
Okay.
because I want time for it, and I'm
Yes.
realizing that we're almost getting to the time of the channel now. And I'll give a little preview.
Yeah.
When we were there, we had an amazing experience with the Indigenous. The Aborigine usually, and this is, I'm not telling anything out of source, are apart from the whites. They don't really have that much to do with them, and so you don't usually get close. And we did, and it was an astonishing thing. They even felt Kryon. So this is what I want to tell. In one of these times we're together.
Yeah. And when you say apart, it's
Yeah.
just their deep spiritual truths. I
Yes.
think that's what you mean, because
Yeah.
there has been a lot more recognition now, thank goodness,
Yes.
of including Indigenous in welcome to country ceremonies and things like that. So that process has started. Yeah.
I just love the fact that we got to know them.
Yeah.
This
I know.
is my dream, to sit in front of a wise Indigenous person
Yes.
who trusts us
How blessed.
enough to say, here's how it works.
Yeah.
And we've had that with some shamans in the
Yes.
past, and we'll
Yeah.
get to those stories as well. All right, I think it's time right now to get to the channeling.
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask Monica to give us that, and it gives me a chance to take off my watch and my glasses, which I always do before we channel.
Great. So make yourself comfortable wherever you are sitting and tuning in to watching this happen now or listening. Allow your body to relax. Relax your head, relax your shoulders, relax your arms and your hands. Relax your chest, relax your back. Relax your abdomen, your thighs, your knees, your calves, and your feet. And feel the energy of the earth connecting up through your feet, up through your calves, your knees, your thighs, your abdomen, your chest, your back, your hands, your arms, your shoulders, and traveling up through your head and out the top of your head, and connecting to the universal field that surrounds you and is biased in love. And from this place, let us give permission and a willingness to take the hand of Kryon as we hear the message to be delivered.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Blessed is the human being who sees themselves as we do on the other side of the veil as worthy of hearing truth, of worthy of having that which has always been possible for them. Blessed is the human being who sees the magnificence of their soul as created by that which you would call God. The creative source has many names, many cultures. Sometimes the word God is not the one you want to use only because of the stigma of what you've been told about the word. It's not necessary. God has so many names, one of them being God. Some of them so precious to some, they don't even pronounce it. That creative source is seen by so many as the perfect love source of the universe, creator of all things. The most beautiful thing of that creator is that which is you. On this planet, you play the prime role. We have told you for so long that because of this, the indigenous wisdom tells you to ally with that which is nature, with that which has the name Gaia. That's just one of many things you have been told. There are so many hidden things because of your culture, things that your culture has not brought forward from the past, things that your culture does not believe, that you haven't been taught, and yet they are the staple of those who've lived on this planet for so long. So part of this, the channeling, the healing, all that is being taught, is trying to connect you again, not to what you've lost, but what you simply haven't been told. It's there, dear ones. All of it is there. I want to talk yet again to this group who is listening, who may never have heard this. Do you know what innate is? If I said something about that which is your innate, would you know what I was speaking of? I wish to speak about something in your body that is a key player, if you want to use that word, in the healing circle of 12. Something that if you don't know about it, now you will, and you may even scratch your head if you haven't heard this before. There are so many who understand, who know what innate is. But now I want to tell you. There is an intelligence in your cellular structure that is not necessarily represented in your brain. Your brain is the master computer and rememberer. It has a part of your consciousness, but not all. Your consciousness is really part of a triad between your pineal, representing the soul connection, your heart, and your brain. But your brain is not all that is. And even though it controls so much of what your body does, there is something called innate. And that innate is smarter than you are. It knows a lot more about what's going on in the body than you do. Now, for years, you might have heard about certain kinds of processes that use innate, but probably didn't understand that they were doing that very thing. One is called kinesiology. Kinesiology has another name, muscle testing. Muscle testing and kinesiology is used even into science and even in mainstream doctors. It is something that is absolutely understood and known works. Why it works, perhaps not as well, but it works. Muscle testing will be sometimes used in order to test what your body wants in the number of doses of a medicine or a supplement. And that muscle testing will ask yes or no, yes or no. Is the body ready for this? Innate is responsible for one of the greatest healing modalities that exists on the planet, homeopathy. How can you take a tincture, which is a healing signal that is so small it is measured in parts per million, too small to have any kind of a chemical reaction from the body? You put it in your mouth under your tongue, and the body then performs what the tincture is for. Homeopathy has been used for centuries, and it works. In certain countries, when you go into a store to buy remedies, they will not sell you anything but homeopathy because they know of the power of a signal under your tongue that your brain sees. That is innate, dear ones. Innate isn't simply responsible for these kinds of things. It goes further and further. Innate also corresponds with consciousness. Here's where I'm going that you should know. Have you heard of affirmations? And have you wondered why they might work? Someone says, I am healed. I am complete. I am pure. And that someone who is saying it may be lying in a sickbed. And you'll go, how odd that they would have a dichotomous statement when they're ill, stating that they are well. This is where innate starts to kick in, meaning starts to work. because there is a consciousness part of the innate that hears what you say, because you are the boss. The consciousness of your body is you. You are the boss of your cells. And when you state certain kinds of things, innate hears it, and just like the homeopathy, starts to implement the very things you are saying. Did you hear that? This is how powerful your consciousness is as it starts a process that's always been there. We've also told you the opposite, that if you decide to tell your body it's worthless, your innate will kick in. In other words, it'll start a process of dis-ease, of unhealthy. If you're worthless, you don't even belong to be here. That is what you're telling your body. That is why we have always said, be careful what you say, because innate, the smart body, is listening. And when it hears the boss make statements, it does its best to implement. Just like if you had some tincture under your tongue that said, get sick, it would. That's how powerful all of this is, dear ones. It's called innate. My partner has talked about hypochondriacs and had a friend, he says, even from high school, who was afraid that he would catch everything and that he would die of cancer. All through his life, he was sick. And all through his life, my partner heard him say, well, I have this and I have that, and I'm not going to live long. And he didn't. All through his life, he told his body what he was afraid of, and the body took care of it all. He caught everything he was afraid of and died of cancer. This is because he was programming himself for dysfunction. It goes both ways, dear ones. How about programming yourself for magnificence? In this healing circle, this circle of 12, innate is critical. Because as you start these visions that I have given you and that I will guide you through and that some of you have been through with me in the premiere, as you start these visions, your smart body, your innate, will say, this is real. This is what the consciousness is going toward. Look, here's where we are. Here, look what's happening. Look, there's feet being washed. Look, there's healings going on. Look at the affirmation. And listening for what your consciousness has to say, who you are, and what's going to happen next. Your innate, dear ones, is part of this healing process. They call it the smart body for a reason, for a very good reason. It's smarter than you are. And sometimes, dear ones, it will even go around who you.
So the past can be at peace and you can move forward into the future, living the present moment with your own identity. So though family constellations are all about going back into the past and releasing past pain, it's about literally releasing it so the present moment can be pure and so that the future can come into our lives.
I have a very esoteric question.
Great. I love it.
And I'm not sure even how to pose this. We don't rehearse this, so, I'm free to ask stupid questions.
Absolutely you are.
This ancestral healing is, this is the first time I've really heard it explained like this. I get excited because you've said DNA and you've said these things and it carries through this. Let me ask you this, again, an esoteric question. If somebody actually is able to bring this to peace within themselves and dissolve it, does that then carry, is it dismissed then from their children and all? Is that the end of the line, or does it continue to carry?
Absolutely, 100% yes. Because in the family constellation healing, I like to use images to make it easier for us to understand. So it's like the family soul is an ocean, and every family member is an iceberg floating on that ocean. When people pass away, like your great-grandfather, they melt into that ocean. Everybody shares the same water, but the individuals are different icebergs. But if there's an oil spill in that ocean, the little icebergs are going to get affected, right?
Yes.
So when one person goes into a constellation field and releases that pain. It's like clearing away the oil spill so everybody benefits. And I cannot describe to you how many results I have seen, not only with my family. It's been about 11 years that I've been doing constellation work consistently, but the people that I help and everybody that I witness that really embraces this work, it ripple effects with their family members, with the new generations. It really, people don't even have to be aware that you have done a constellation process. They will benefit regardless because it works on a deep unconscious level. So the individual mind does not have to know because everybody shares that same foundation, the collective soul, as Bert Hellinger called it. And this is actually a Zulu modality. It comes from Africa.
Wow.
The person who developed family constellation work used to be a priest in a Catholic church, and he lived in South Africa for about 16 years, and he learned a lot from the Zulus. So he went there to teach them theoretically about Western thought and Christianity, but he said, well, I'm learning much more from them. And now I understand that as Westerners, we are wrong to think we are individuals. We are much more collective than we think. We first belong to a family soul and a cultural soul. And then we have an individual identity. And once we start developing consciousness, we become reconnected to all of humanity, to all of life. That's why it's the Cardinal Method of Life Connection. And we transcend our human experience only after we have organized our connections with our families and we have understood who we are as individuals. So that's why the Cardinal Method has 4 pillars, because each pillar addresses one aspect of our existence.
I love it. I love this a lot. And I've heard about the family constellation work as well, and there's even been someone who has developed family constellation where instead of having other people come in and represent the family members, they're doing it with horses.
Oh, wow.
And the horses come in and they reveal more to a person that, because facing family, let's face it, it can be confrontational.
Yeah.
And then when you have the horses, it reduces a bit of that element of the confrontation and allows them to step outside of themselves. But here, you are taking this work even, I guess, one step further by incorporating it with the 3 other pillars. And I can only think that this was kind of downloaded to you, or you've kind of channeled this work. And it seems to me like the results are being profound. Can you share some of those results with us? We'd love to hear.
I would love to, and you're absolutely right. First of all, the Cardinal Method constellations include crystals. So if it's a group of people, everybody holds a stone, because crystals have internal geometry that align consciousness with the higher light, and they have colors that heal the soul. Just by being there in the field, the forces of nature that are present in crystals make the work, I would say, if I had to quantify this, but I need more research, I need more people testing this to confirm it's just an intuition, but it makes things 10 times lighter emotionally, so it's not as dramatic. Things are 10 times faster with crystal energy, so it gives a boost to the prior modalities that the Cardinal Method is inspired in. And yes, you are right about the download. I think I was being prepared since my teenage days, right? It started when I was 14 years old. My mind was being prepared to receive the Cardinal Method. And on December 11th of 2010, I received a download. I was being trained as a family constellation a family constellation practitioner. And we were in the training, and I received the download. And a lot of indigenous wisdom was coming through saying, you need to align this with the traditional constellation method. So I spoke to my 2 instructors, and I had just recently defended my PhD thesis. So I said, now there's a method here that I need to show you to validate this, because I don't want to think that I'm creating things out of the blue. And they said, okay. So we were there for 3 hours. I showed them everything that was being downloaded to me literally.
Wow.
And they said, this is a system that you need to develop. You have our blessing. You're going beyond constellation. Just go develop that. And I got the chills just seeing this.
Chills of
right?
validation.
Yeah.
Yes. That was in December of 2010. which the yang aspect, the masculine aspect of the Cardinal Method, which are crystals, animal power, and music, came to me that date. When I went back to Brazil in December of last year, 9 years later, I had no idea I would get another download. The feminine aspect with plants, ascended masters, which are the heart chakra. So this is also related to the chakras, right? The crystals with the first chakra, the root chakra, the plants with the sacral chakra, the animals on the solar plexus, the ascended masters in the heart, the music with the throat, light and color in the third eye, and the abundance of life, which is life connection, is the crown chakra. So the second pillar of the second half of the Cardinal Method, the divine feminine, the sacred feminine vibration, came last year in December in Brazil. It always happens in Brasilia, which is my hometown, which is the center of the country. I don't know if people know this, but in the middle of Brazil, there is a huge quartz crystal shield below the earth. Amazing. And that is where the two downloads have come to me.
That makes total sense.
Absolutely. I was getting chills up my arms as well. I don't know if I'm going to just share it. Kryon has actually given channels about Brazil, and that this area, they have a group of people that are wanting to kind of create a new model for South America, which is aligned with the model of the European Union, where you come together as a trading bloc and everything else. And when we were in Brazil and Kryon was channeling, we would really connect in with that crystalline energy of the earth that is there. So, and that is in the southern hemisphere. It's all linked to the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, where you have the southern hemisphere is the feminine, the mother energy, and everything you said was just giving me chills with you.
I'm interested in, when did you get the download on the divine feminine?
It was December 19th, 2019.
All right. We're into that. This is part of the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, and that is that the divine feminine is going to be more realized and accepted in the northern hemisphere. I just love it that you originated in the love hemisphere, that you have originated in the feminine hemisphere, and are bringing all this knowledge to us here now. It's all related. It's one of the reasons you're on the program, of course.
I'm so grateful.
I want to know, because you originated in a very religious country, how did that work right in the middle of Brasilia, or did it affect you, or were you trained in?
It did affect me. It's actually a pretty funny story. My parents are not religious at all. My mother came from a very religious Catholic family.
All right.
And the Brazilian families are very close-knit. And my grandmother and great-grandmother on the maternal side were extremely religious. And when I was born and my brother was born a year later, my parents said, we want them to choose their spiritual faith. We're not going to baptize them in a Catholic church. Mm-hmm. But when I was 7, all I could think of was Jesus. He was like, I was so obsessed. Between 7 and 11, all I wanted to do was to be with Jesus Christ. And I told my parents, I need to learn more about his life. Right. So I would ask my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and I said, I need to get baptized to feel what he felt. I need to know what his energy is. And I need to get baptized the way he did. So my parents had a swimming pool. And I said, please let me bless the house. Please let me bring the here so that I can be baptized like Jesus.
Was Jesus baptized in a swimming pool? Did I get this wrong?
You know? Though Brazil is very religious, my parents were not. And they thought it was they thought my grandmother was brainwashing me. But now I know they understand it's a different story.
I'm sorry, I was interrupting with stupid
doing
stuff.
A bad joke.
I was saying, was Jesus baptized in a swimming pool? And I'm sorry to interrupt that. I love the story. So this is great. It's not a bad role model to be obsessed with when you're when you're little. That's a great story.
And you know, I look at your story, and all of it is in preparation for exactly what's happening on the planet now. We need this work, and you got the download 2010, and now Kryon talks about passing the marker. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, 2012 was a marker in time that collectively we were either going to go the path of consciousness and love and self-realization, or down the path of destruction. And so here we are in 2020, 20, where the work that you began, you've now received the download last year on the feminine complete.
Yeah.
So this is something that is going to help a lot of people, and the timing is just so spot on. And again, I'm excited because we have a young female that is leading the way in giving these new tools to the planet.
I'm so grateful. And just so you know, the Cardinal Method master animal is the harpy. It's a South American, Central American eagle. So just wanted to share that.
Oh,
Thank
beautiful.
you. I love that.
Beautiful.
There.
And how is and back to that comment about a young woman. Now, years ago, it was very difficult to begin doing things like this and presenting it to the community. How are you getting your responses, because you are a young woman and you have this new kind of work? How is that? Share a bit about your journey in that.
Well, it's actually beyond my control. Actually, it was effortless. I've been a university professor for a while, right? I started my academic career when I was 21, when I started teaching. And I knew I needed to develop my rational mind so that I could speak my spiritual truths and be respected in the world. I knew that I needed a PhD so that people would respect the spiritual truths that I needed to bring to the world when the time was right. And when I became a university professor, I was already developing the Cardinal Method as a parallel activity because I wanted to bring the theory of family constellations into the academic world of moral philosophy, most importantly, and the values of different cultures. So I was giving it a scientific academic vibration, which people respected. But my husband got a job in Florida, and I said, okay, let's go, because the best libraries in the world are in the US for what I need to research about Indigenous wisdom. And I wanted to replicate my PhD thesis with different nations. So I started working with with Indigenous from South America, the Incas, the Tupinambás in Brazil. And I wanted to see how the North American Indians and the Central American Indians, they behaved regarding the soul and everything. So that's a technical story that is not really the point here. But once I got to Florida, I have always connected with my spiritual life, and I had been receiving energy healing sessions in Brazil. I had my Reiki certification, magnified healing, and in the US, I was embraced by the spiritual community of Florida. So I knew in my heart it was another breakthrough when I was taking a course of energy healing to treat myself with energy techniques. I just heard there's no doubt about this. And I said, I know I have to be doing this right now. And my academic research can wait. I'll go back to that when I'm 70. I cannot be in university libraries anymore. I need to create a center and bring this to people. I need to be with hands-on healing now and bring the Cardinal Method to more people. So things happened really fast. I was very supported by the spiritual community of South Florida. I became certified in the US so that I could deliver this work to more people. I opened my healing center in less than a year.
Wow.
And it's been there for 5 years. And I know it's not my individual energy. I know that I'm just kind of a guardian to higher, there's a whole myriad of spiritual energy that is bringing that space to the world, that is supporting this work, that brings the people in online or physically before the pandemic, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And I know it's orchestrated by much higher realms, and I am just one little piece of the puzzle in the story.
I love that, and I love that you're part of the puzzle.
We've got about 5 minutes left. Time goes quickly when you're having fun. Regarding current events, COVID, the whole routine and all, how does that Cardinal Method apply or not apply to this specific energies we're in right now?
I love that you asked that, because the Cardinal Method literally ultimately is about the joy of life, right? That's the result we want. That's the state of being. That's our natural state of being. That's what we're designed to be as nature in source and God, or whatever you want to call it. That's the intention of our life. The purpose of our lives is, in my opinion, consciousness expansion and the joy of life. So when the pandemic hit and fear was the predominant energy, I knew in my heart that I needed to just encourage the joy of life and bring tools to people that really turned fear into safety and that shifted their focus to the crown chakra, really, to spiritual awakening. And once you're connected to the higher light, there is no fear. You know you're guarded, you know you're protected. So the Cardinal Method has brought online constellations for free as emotional support to people. And it's so incredible because I don't control any of this, right?
Okay.
I am, as I said, a piece of the puzzle. I just follow higher instructions. And every time we hold free online constellations in English and Portuguese, we've been doing this once a month, people tap into the joy of life. They're holding crystals. They are so optimistic about it. They understand that we are purging our fear. They understand that this is a spiritual awakening and that this is not evil, that those who really are willing to connect to unconditional love and to the joy of life are going to be supported, and that their lives are going to be incredibly powerful once they awaken to the crown chakra. So I do say this, corona is the crown chakra. It's an awakening moment. And we do have the choice to either step into fear and play